Escazú Agreement.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, I'll have Arica introduce herself. For those who may have missed the 2 times she was here, she can explain that. Who is Arica Hill? And
Who is Arica Hill?
Who is she? And
all right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Arica. I am the executive director of the Environmental Awareness Group, and I like to always say after saying that yes, it is a full-time job. It's really great work. I've studied this. Environmental management is what I studied last.
Last?
It was the last thing. I did something else before.
What did you do before?
I did tourism.
You did tourism?
Yeah, I had my first degree is in tourism.
Okay.
But I actually wanted to focus on sustainable tourism. And then I think this is a natural
bridge, a natural marriage,
sustainable
tourism and the environment.
Yes.
Can go hand in hand.
They actually should.
Yes, I agree. When you think of tourism, you should think of the environment.
Correct.
And sustainability for future
generations.
So it is the last thing that you studied.
Yes. And so I've been working with the Environmental Awareness Group for the past 3 years now.
Yeah.
It's really exciting work.
Yes.
I'm really excited to be here because I really want to share on something that hasn't been spoken a lot about in Antigua and Barbuda. And I think people need to know what's happening so that they can know what to do next.
Okay, that's great. So you've enjoyed the work you've done so far with the EAG in the past 3 years?
Yeah, it's actually been quite a bit of fun, Aziza. I mean, I think about so we got a new staff member in October.
Okay.
Right? So she came on as a wildlife officer in October. And literally just looking at her last week, I was like, have you even had a break? Have you... it's either been she's gotten communications training, she's gotten training in seagrass beds. So we actually went out and did marine surveys. Okay. She's done fish ID training. She's done a video for trash challenge.
Yes.
We've done she helped to script and film a 4-part series that's going to be launched in January. Okay. And then she went to Redonda this week.
Yes, I've seen clips of the Redonda.
She was just like, I don't feel like I've been here and it's just 2 months.
That's great.
Yeah, so we're always very busy, very active, and I think what's great about where we work is that because it's what we love, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, actually, because I know Shana, we call her the Redonda lady.
Yes.
So
she's not just the Redonda lady anymore, she's now the Offshore Islands lady.
She's the Offshore Islands lady.
Yes. Because now she is the program coordinator for the offshore islands. So all those islands, like Great Bird Island and that side of the island, she's the one who's kind of going to be dealing with that from now on.
That's great. I know how passionate. Anyone doesn't know Shana, she is extremely passionate. Anytime Ida sees her, he calls her the Redonda lady, big her up. She's really passionate about it.
Yeah.
As a young woman, she's also a Chevening
scholar, yes.
Chevening scholar, which is really amazing. So big up to if she's listening, big up to you because I like to see that passion.
And I would encourage people to not just follow EAG on Instagram, so we're at EAG Antigua, but also follow Shana. She's species with Shana.
Yeah,
just follow her. She's fun.
Yes, she is. So
she's fun. She gives quizzes.
Yeah, someone said something unpatriotic the other day, and then someone said we're going to put you in Redonda, and then I'm like, don't do that. Shana's going to get upset. We're not banishing anyone to Redonda.
You can't banish anybody to Redonda. No, it's not possible. We need the island to be perfect.
Yeah, we don't want you to match up that ecosystem.
Right.
So that's great. And you already did something on Redonda recently.
Yeah, so we have not actually been able to go over to Redonda since last year, March. So I know. So it's been a year and a half or more that we've not been over to the island. So normally what we're supposed to do is every quarter we'd fly over and we'd spend a day or two counting birds, counting lizards, checking the height of vegetation, checking to see the types of vegetation, like how many trees are there, how many different types of plants and so on. Because you need to know like all of those things tell you how well the island is flourishing.
Okay.
So like when we first went over to Redonda, and I am not the Redonda lady, so I don't have all the figures, but like there were 1 or 2 trees, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of species there in terms of
because I remember the last time it was really just a lot of grass, and you know
there are now 83 different species of plants over there, and that is without us going and planting anything. This is not us saying, oh yeah, we think that island needs this. It's the island literally, everything just coming up from the soil, just bouncing back. So it's really a great example of how conservation work.
And how it rebounded itself, because when I visited, I'm just like blown away. 83 different species just popped up between the last time that you visited.
I mean, so it's not between the last time we visited. It's so since the restoration began in 2016 till now, you're seeing that there are 83 species. So maybe when you went, you might have just seen grass.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what you see. It looked like a grass, right?
That's our grass.
But we actually had, so when we went in March last year, we had a vegetation specialist who went over with us.
Okay.
And he spent, I think it was 2 or 3 days, literally checking samples of each species and counting them and saying, okay, this is what we actually have over there.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of the work that we do is slow going, kind of. But anyway, so we hadn't been over there since March last year because, as you know, Caribbean helicopters, they closed down. And so we didn't have transportation.
You can only fly in a helicopter over there.
I mean, you could take a boat, but who is climbing over that? Who?
The cliff, like
that's a no.
The cliff is a no. I saw the cliff and I was like, that's a no.
That's a no. It's not safe. And so we were so glad to go over because, for one, we needed to see, you know, we've known that there are people who have visited Redonda since, who've been adventurous and kind of gone to climb over, and we're like, okay, have they carried over any invasive species? Has it been reinfested with rats? I mean, those are things that you worry about constantly because one rat,
that's it.
Yeah. So we went on Monday, we actually had 2 teams of people, so 12 people total. Went over to first clear paths because, you know, since we've not been there for a year and a half, grass grows. So we had to actually clear trails so that we could go to the different stations where we have bait boxes.
Yes.
So, and the bait boxes obviously have bait so that if a rat comes, you know, they'd kind of be excited to smell that bait, they'd go and they'd eat it. Okay. So you actually have to go check to see if it had been eaten at all. Yeah. And if you see teeth marks, what kind of teeth marks? Okay. So it's not just if rats ate it, but is anything else eating it?
Trying to eat it.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing the report that comes out of that.
So y'all cleared bush
and checked bait boxes, and then came back over and they were exhausted.
Yeah, I think I saw one of them tweet, won't call a name, and I'm sure he thought he was going to be stranded because Shauna was like,
"You got hello. When the helicopter come, you better
be ready.
You need to be there. Jump in and let's go.
In and out
because it's expensive.
Quite. But I'm glad to see that the island is flourishing.
Yeah.
Were there any rats?
Not that we could tell. So. Once they do the analysis on those teeth marks, we'll be able to be sure. But I don't think that they saw any signs of rats.
Do you have mongoose on the island?
No.
Mongoose?
No, mongoose are also,
Are they invasive species?
They're invasive. They don't belong here anyway. So if they're over there, I'd be like,
so I heard a story a couple weeks ago by a scientist and he said to me that the mongoose came for the snakes, right?
Yes.
To fight the snakes because mongoose and snakes. But the problem is it didn't work because the snakes and the mongoose have 2 completely different sleeping patterns.
Yeah.
And so they brought the mongoose to kill the snakes, and it didn't work.
Nobody did the research.
They did the research that because what basically I learned this from just recently at work, and he basically told me that the snakes and the mongoose have 2 different sleeping patterns. Yeah. One is nocturnal, one is diurnal.
Diurnal, yes.
And so basically they would not cross each other's paths.
They never saw each other.
So the mongoose just came and they flourished.
And they were fine. Everybody would.
And so.
But the rats eventually got killed out by. The snakes got killed out by rats, and that's.
Also, the rats did it.
Yeah, because what the rats like to do is that they bite the little tails of the snakes.
Yeah.
And I know you're kind of thinking like a snake has a tail. Isn't all of it a tail? No. There's like a little end where it has this reproductive part.
Okay.
And that's the part that the rat
Like?
was fast enough to catch. I don't know. So they would always eat that part of the snake. So there was actually a time when there were snakes on the islands, but they couldn't reproduce. So obviously if they can't reproduce, then the species dies away. So
fun fact. The mongoose came for the snakes, but they couldn't have no beef because they didn't even see each other.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is we're talking about the
Escazú, I think, well, that's what I've been saying, and I'm just going to stick with it.
Because I saw Ibis have issues pronouncing it, and I was like, I looked it up, and I'm like, because it's Spanish.
It's Spanish. So because I think it's Escazú, because the A is never as sharp as like
and there's
ours.
an accent on the U.
Correct. So I'm going with Escazú and hoping that works.
So we're talking about the Escazú Agreement, which was ratified by the government of Antigua and Barbuda in March 2020. So
yes.
That was just the other day. Just when, the lockdown started happening, whatever. So I think that's a big part of why people may not, know, but we're mostly concerned about COVID locking down and opening back the country. So we're talking about the Escazú Agreement today. And so, Arica, what exactly is the Escazú Agreement? And how is it relevant to, each and every one of us?
Okay. So what I would say is that the Escazú Agreement is not new necessarily. Okay. This agreement in itself the agreement is new, but the concept is not new.
Okay.
What it is it basically says to us that we need to have environmental rights. Okay. And those environmental rights are based on three main pillars. So the first pillar is the whole idea that you should have access to information. And I guess when you think, okay, but access to information, that's not a big deal. It is, because if you say to me that like a development is supposed to happen, yes. Right? And it's usually in the case of development where these circumstances come up. I need to be able to access the information on it. Maybe if you could kind of go to the one on the pillars, the three pillars, that would be good.
Yeah. So I don't know which one that is.
Click out.
So the three pillars, which are these, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's access to environmental information. So sometimes you as a person who's not used to being in the environmental sphere, you want to be able to say, okay, so this development is happening. What is the impact on the environment? What is the impact on me? You're supposed to have that ability to ask questions and get the information on it.
So Escazú Agreement is about environmental rights.
It's about environmental rights, and it's about really three parts of that. So the first part is you should have access to information. Yes. And the information doesn't have to just be, okay, well, it's on our website. Okay. It must be in a way that I can understand it. Okay. So if you are somebody, you're an accountant, you're not accustomed to reading anything on environmental matters, and you don't understand it, somebody should be able to explain it to you. So that's one. Mm-hmm. Then the other part of it is that you have the right to participate in decision making. Okay. That's huge.
Very much so. People like me so to speak, are the decision makers.
Correct.
We pass the laws.
Right. And really and truly, it should not be you.
It should be the people.
It should be the people. Like, okay. Let's say, friends, you live in, where do you live?
I tell people I live in Scottsdale.
Okay, it's true. Okay, so you live in Scottsdale. You are passing legislation, or you are making a decision on a development that's happening in McKinnon's. Okay. You living in Scottsdale. And you making a decision.
People living in McKinnon's.
That people in McKinnon's are going to have to live with. Not just for the rest of their lives. Their children are going to have to live with. Their children's children are going to have to live with. This is generational. Yes. And you who live in a Scottsdale making the decision alone, that don't make no sense.
Then people from McKinnon start stoning my house.
Okay, well, I mean, you know how Antiguans do, just
flick a stone. So basically, it's so people can take the rights that you have and how you can be involved in the decision making.
So it says that you must be a part of decision making.
You must. So that's a point I want to talk about later. The must to be a part of it.
That must.
And you say this is something that it's new. It's not new.
It's not new. But okay, so those are only just the first two pillars.
Yeah.
The final pillar is where it actually gets dicey.
What's that?
That's the access to justice on environmental matters.
That's very interesting. The justice part.
The justice.
The court of law.
Aziza. So, let's say, for instance, and let's just go simple.
The same McKinnon's thing. So the people
same McKinnon's, right? You live in a McKinnon's, me live in a McKinnon's. Okay, rather, I live in McKinnon's and you come and you move into the area.
Yes.
Where you're coming, there is a small pond that's on the land that you have purchased. It is not my fault that you are living in that you purchased land that have a pond in it. They have nothing to do with me.
You try backfill the pond.
But you decide to backfill the pond, and now me
get flood out.
I should have access to justice on a matter such as that.
Interesting.
I should also have access to justice if you have ignored my pleas for, and this is like if a larger development, if you have ignored my pleas to my traditional rights to spaces, if you've ignored my request to be a part of the decision making, if you have ignored every potential place where I could be a part of the decision making process, and my pipe gets smoke, I can take it to court.
It makes me think of the Jamaican meme. Me want justice, the woman.
No, I don't remember that one.
I'll send it to you. But
it's the whole idea is that people are not supposed to act without recognizing that any environmental matter must be people-centered. And what it's also supposed to do is by making it people-centered, it reduces the potential for conflict. Because if I have asked you your opinion, Aziza, I have met with you not just once. Because, lots of times when we say, oh, we're going to have a town hall meeting, or I'm going to have consultations with people. And I have one consultation, and there are cameras everywhere because you need to be able to say that you've done it.
Yes.
Right? I may not be comfortable to speak up when there are cameras everywhere.
So you have to have other avenues.
You have to have other avenues. You must have so many different avenues for saying that if I have never participated in the consultations, let it become my fault. Let it not be because you did not
make the effort.
Correct.
And okay, interesting. So, question I want to ask: where did this agreement come from? Because it applies to the Latin America and the Caribbean.
Yes.
So where did it originally come from? Because we only ratified in 2020, but it must be older than that.
No, it's not. It actually has not come into force as yet.
So
it is the Escazú Agreement itself is new.
So the Rio Convention is the one that.
Yes.
So it's based on the Rio Convention.
It's based on the Rio Convention from 1992.
Okay.
So the first two pillars about access to information and participating in decision making, those have been in the books forever. So since 1992. So even sometimes when I look through, like when you look at the Paris Agreement that was signed in 2018, it's there.
Yeah.
Prior to the Paris Agreement, the Convention on Climate Change, it's there. If you look in the Convention of Biological Diversity, it's there. So all the conventions that actually speak to how the environment is supposed to be managed, all of them already cover access to information and access to participation.
So it's the justice
part.
It's
that justice part that's a bit new.
That's interesting.
And why it's a bit different is that it's not only just, okay, well, I can go to the courts and the court understands what I'm raising issues about and can deal with it, but it's also that an environmental defender is protected.
Okay.
So
So there's some interesting things there. So we have this agreement. You said it has not been ratified as yet.
We have ratified it.
Antigua has ratified
yes,
it. Other countries haven't.
I think it's 11 other countries.
So 11 other countries in the region have ratified it. So it's an agreement. Is it an international agreement like Paris, or is it a regional agreement?
It's a regional agreement, which is being recognized internationally.
Okay, so it's a regional. So it's not like the Paris. The Paris is everybody wants to sign to Paris.
Correct.
But this is and I know the EU, there's something that they're signing in terms of greenhouse emissions. And so this is for us,
yes,
but it's internationally recognized.
Yes.
Okay, so I understand. So it's we subbing Latin American and Caribbean. Escazú, I assume it's a South American.
I think it was signed in Costa Rica. And so, it's always based on where it was signed.
Bastille.
Yeah.
So Escazú is a place where it was signed. And so we have ratified it. So since we have ratified it, how is it applied in Antigua? Is it ratified?
So it hasn't been applied as yet.
Yeah.
And so when we've had conversations about it in the past, and people are like, okay, so how does it treat with existing law?
Okay.
So as I mentioned before, the two of those pillars are already kind of existing.
Okay.
So for instance, we have a commissioner of information or information commissioner. I'm not sure which way you put that. Anyways,
Doctor, is that
I think it's Minister Nicholas.
No, are you talking about the director, the one that's Mrs. Palmer? Mrs. Palmer is one of them.
Not true.
My memory.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the whole idea is that we have an information act, whatever that is. So technically,
those two pillars are already codified.
So technically, you're already covered under the Access to Information Act, whatever. I can't remember what the act is right now. It's just completely slipping me. But whatever that act is, we already have it on our books since I think 2004. Okay. So technically, that pillar is already covered there.
Okay.
When it comes to the participation in decision making, it's in the Physical Planning Act already. So if you have
it's in the Physical Planning Act.
Yes. The Physical Planning Act basically says that if you're going to have a development that's going to be a marina, a hotel, whatever, you must speak to all of the stakeholders who are affected by it.
Okay.
Right? So it's also within the Environmental Protection and Management Act of 2019.
Yes, the one that I passed.
Correct.
The very hefty one.
So so both the access to information and the access to participation in environmental, like in decision making, both of those things are covered under the EPMA. So it means it's there already, but what
used it.
It's how we use it. And okay. I think the thing is that we don't actually know that we have the right to do these things. So very often anybody can mama guy you because you don't know.
I like that. Anybody can mama guy you because you just don't know.
You don't know. And so you will feel, well, they're doing all these things in the community. I don't even understand. And you will just leave it there and mumble among yourselves. No, call the Department of Environment. Hey, I see y'all doing so-and-so. Or this person is doing that thing. Explain.
Why?
How, who it's affecting. It looked like it's going to affect me because I live here for 35 years. And I know that waterway, when you turn it so, everybody down this way go flood. So when you do that, how it going to work? And you have the right to ask them. And they have to.
They have to answer you.
They have to answer you. And they can't answer you with attitude neither because it's in the law. It's in the law.
It's on the books, but people.
On the books.
I just said people don't know, so you get mama guy,
bamboozle, all the time,
run amok, as Malcolm X would say. So, and they said the only thing that thing is the justice part now.
The justice part, and I think so there's a little bit of differences in how things are treated across Latin America and the Caribbean. So in Latin America, environmental defenders, those people who are in the Amazon and whatever, and these are indigenous people.
And they would chain themselves to buildings.
I mean, and it's not even just that. Like, they are just speaking out because they know that for them, not only is it their sustenance, it's their spiritual rights, their traditional rights, all of that is being removed from them. And a lot of these people end up disappearing. They die. I mean, it's actually scary how many of them die.
I need, like, I know in Brazil they have certain laws about not interacting with indigenous tribes and anything. And but him, their leader, is quite, anti-indigenous, the environment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they're having a lot of static and issues because of the way he has been dealing with the Amazon.
Yeah.
And these indigenous groups where you say it's not just their sustenance, it's a spiritual thing.
It's everything. It's their lives. And so the reason why for Latin America, their look at it is that environmental defenders must be protected. And if they do speak up against something, they should not end up disappearing. So this is actually trying to protect them from being harmed and being able to prove. So before, you'd have to find, really, it's difficult for you to prove that you're being victimized, or it's difficult to prove that, what you're saying is causing so much stress that possibly people will want to get rid of you. What the Escazú Agreement says is, we understand that when environmental defenders speak, they are at the front lines and anything can happen to them, so they need to be protected. Within the Caribbean, our situation is a bit different, where I don't think we expect to disappear. We don't expect to die. Yeah. But we do know that we get victimized.
Yes.
And I know, as an environmental defender, there are times when you're a little nervous about what you can say and what you can't. And I think that's wrong.
Should we be able to talk? What was it? Talk as you like?
You would think so, but you can't talk as you like. Let's be honest. Let's be fair to people. And I think, like, as we carry this veneer of, well, you're in the Caribbean, you're fine, nothing targa happened to nobody. That's not true. People lose their jobs. People lose their access to even, like, getting a bank loan. Simple things that you would think, oh, but
this don't happen here.
This don't happen here. You hear about people who lose contracts. I mean, victimization happens. And if you are not, this is not you. An environmental defender is not somebody who's speaking up because they care about themselves. Environmental defenders are not walking around like, hey, it's because I want to live in a great place. It's because I want everybody to live in a great place.
And that's where we talk about sustainable development.
Correct. And so when you think about that this person wants to do the best possible things for their country, they should live free. They should not feel afraid at any time.
So in terms of the justice, because one thing I wanted is, what for the average person listening, they want to know, what power does this agreement have? What does it mean for me? For the general public, they may ask, does an agreement work like a law? How are entities held accountable? And we say that the two pillars in it, we already codified in law with the Physical Planning Act, the Environmental
Protection
Act that we passed, which is 100 and something pages long, I swear. it was a long read. And so we know in those two laws, the third one, justice. So how do our entities hold accountable? And how can the justice one be? Do we have to pass a law?
Yeah, so this is where it gets dicey for me. Because we have a very interesting...
How you trying to phrase this? I see you're scratching your head. We have a very interesting...
I know where I am.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm saying is this. Our laws allow for ministers to override.
Yes.
Right? And I will say that I've said it in other spheres, and I will say it here as well. There are times when I understand why they do it. Yes. Right? Because I personally believe, and I would prefer for people to think I'm naive and just super optimistic. I believe that people are inherently good, right? And yes, I see your face.
Out of the mask.
I see your eyes just go like, okay, Arica. Sweet Arica.
Still Arica.
I want to believe that people are inherently good and that they want to see the best for their country. But at the same time, what happens is that sometimes you make really bad decisions and the override takes over everything, and at the end of it, we are left with the poopy end of the stick.
The poopy end of the stick.
Right? So, when we had a panel discussion on this whole Escazú Agreement, what it means and what we need to do next, one of the lawyers said, look, all of this is in law. They will probably make an amendment to the EPMA, which is the Environmental Protection Management Act, to include all of the things of Escazú in maybe a schedule, whatever. I don't know how things go, but it'll probably...
An amendment. You can have an amendment with the Justice Part.
Right. So it will have in all of them, right? But bet you money, it will have in the override. So I was like, so what do we need to do? He said it needs to be a constitutional right. Because the Constitution is the highest law of the land.
Yes. And we can't change the Constitution like that.
And you just can't well, I don't feel like it today. I don't want to give people those rights.
That's interesting.
And so his thing is that you have to recognize that, are we at a point to understand that environmental rights are inherent fundamental human rights? It should be. Because an environmental right is the right to live in a clean and safe environment. Punto final. Easy.
Preamble to the Constitution. Interesting. I see his point. And it's a very good point.
It's a very good point. The question is...
Because laws can always be amended, appealed, repealed. We do that all the time. We amend laws, we repeal laws, we change laws. It's a part of legislation. One legislative body should not have power over the other way. It cannot repeal laws. So, it's the agenda. Every legislative body, chamber should have the power to appeal a law, to amend the law as they see fit. We can't do it with the Constitution. It's really hard. You have these entrenched rights. So when we talk about the CCJ and the Privy Council, we had to have a referendum.
Yes.
We had to pass a law. We had to pass a law, and we also had to have a referendum. If the referendum failed, we saw it. So, as you can see. Yeah, so the point is make it a constitutional right, and that is very interesting, and that can be very powerful. Our environmental rights, constitutional rights, the right to clean air, the right to,
clean water. But they should be.
You see things like in 2020, like Flint, Michigan, that shouldn't be happening in a developed country.
It shouldn't. And I mean, so, and I know that it's easy to then kind of make it about, oh, well, I don't care about a bird and bush, but no. My ability, okay, this is a beautiful Saturday morning. What I did this morning before I came here, which is why my hair is wet and I'm cold because of that. I went to Hawksbill with a group of friends and I went snorkeling. It wasn't actually a great day for snorkeling because the sea was a bit churny. But just that right to go to a place that is a part of my heritage, to swim as far as I want to. Well, we tried to get to the island, but it was...
Which island?
The Hawksbill Island.
Oh, the Hawksbill. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we swam Goso.
Okay.
Right.
And tried to reach
but it was really just too
bad.
I was so upset because I was really looking forward to it. But that's not my point. The point is, you have that right to access those places. You have a right that when you go into the water, that is not devoid of fish. That is not devoid of urchins and sea cucumbers and lobsters and all the things that make that environment healthy.
Parrotfish.
Right? Friend, the parrotfish. And even Dr. Fish.
We need parrotfish for our we
need parrotfish. We need Dr. Fish. We need fish that are herbivores. Somebody actually said the other day that they heard somebody say, oh, I only eat fish that are herbivores because they eat in plants. It's good for me. And we're just like, no.
That's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works. You actually need to give those herbivores some time because they need to clean the reefs. If the reefs aren't clean, you're just going to end up with nothing. Like, it's just going to be destroyed. And you're going to...
Look what happened with... which one is dead? It's the Great Barrier Reef?
Dying.
It's dying. The Great Barrier Reef is dying.
Imagine.
It's dying. The great one.
Yes.
It's dying. The biggest, one of the biggest in the world is dying.
Yeah. And I think... So when you think about clean and healthy, a healthy environment, it means that you're supposed to be able... Me who goes snorkeling is supposed to be able to go and enjoy. Whoever who goes fishing must be able to go and also be able to have a consistent supply from his fishing. Somebody else who is in their garden must have the same healthy environment and not expect that the leaching that's coming from somebody's soak away is going to impact upon my vegetable garden and then make me ill. So it's all of those things. It's literally not just about having snakes on Great Bird Island. It's not just about having birds flying, but it's recognizing that if I don't have those things, it means that my environment is not healthy.
You know, something that I've noticed, like I've been to a lot of, I've been to a few like international panels, and what's interesting, we talk about terrorism. There's one I was talking about gender, talk about like terrorism and refugee rights. And the third pillar that they were talking about at this conference was fishing. And I thought it was so interesting that these other two things seem so drastic. Because when you talk about gender, you talk rights of women, you talk about slavery. You know, there's still women who are enslaved and the rights of women in some places. You know, terrorism, you know, refugees and stuff like that. And fishing, and you would think it's not something that would, the equal, you think, okay, those two some drastic, why is fishing and the same thing? And then I remember a gentleman from another Caribbean island, and they were talking about, you know, the seasons. You know, we have seasons, you know, the lobster, you can hunt for lobster now or whatever. And he found it interesting. He's like, they don't have that where he's from. And then, but they also have that problem with you can't get certain things at certain times of the year because the overfishing is a problem. And then you talk about the sustainability of that, you know, feeding people. And you could say this is as important as the terrorism that we're talking about, the gender rights that we're talking about, the overfishing. It may seem simple, but it is as dire as, and then, you know, it was Japan and China and all those countries at this panel. And the thing about being on those international things, which I find funny, when you have to make a statement at the end that all parties agree to.
Yes.
It is the most...
It's stressful, isn't it?
It's the most stressful and hilarious thing to ever happen.
Because everybody has to agree to that.
So, like, at these panels, these international conferences, they have representatives from all these countries. You have a statement to the end that everybody has agreement. So there's one for gender, there's one for terrorism, and there's one for fishing. The gender one, so the Caribbean and African countries didn't want certain inclusions because it had inclusions for, you know, transgender, LGBT, marginalized women, and then you also had things about, you know, abortion and those things that would come up. See, you know, the Caribbean countries and African countries.
We're not ready.
We don't want those things. Now when it comes to the terrorism things, there are certain things the Middle Eastern countries didn't want. And then when it comes to the fishing or the overfishing, you had a lot of those Asian countries
that they would not agree to.
No, they're not. But then the Caribbean countries would agree to.
Yes.
Because I found that the Caribbean and the South American and the Central American countries would agree to those things because they understand the plight of overfishing and whatnot. Then you have some of the Asian countries. They're like,
not no, that.
Not so it was a lesson in diplomacy.
Yeah.
And how difficult it can be because nobody's going to agree.
Those sessions are always, and the thing, I guess maybe when I think about why they mention fishing, right? You have to think about how many people along the line are supported by fishing. Let's even think about in Antigua. I have people at my church who build fish pots. Yes. They're not fishers. They're not fisher folk. They just build fish pots, right? That's their full-time job. So, and they have plenty children, and they're able to feed all those children
from their fish pot,
from selling fish pot. Then remember they have to buy wire from somewhere. Maybe they buy wattle from the people. I don't know if they go cut it themselves. They probably likely cut it themselves, knowing them. But so that's one set of people who get in money. You have the fisher folk who are actually going out and fishing. There's the petrol or gasoline that they have to purchase.
Boats.
The boat maintenance that they have to get. There's people who now purchasing from them who are restaurateurs who, like, there's so many different
Hotels,
people along the line.
And there's normal people. I want to, to cook, so fry some fish. I'm going to buy some fish. So
And I might not even decide to buy. I don't like frying fish personally. I don't enjoy the process at all. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy frying. So I know that there's a lady who sells fried fish. Maga go check she. And me get 2 jolly cakes with it. Hello.
Yes.
Everything
up the water.
So when you think about the fishing industry, it feeds many people.
And if you think about us on a small scale, think of those bigger countries where a lot of people that
Correct.
It feeds. Like the oil disaster they had the other day in and you think about that just massive.
How it will destroy, and it will destroy the fisheries, not just from down Trinidad, but come straight up to Antigua, right? It has an impact. So when you even then add in the pressure that has come from COVID-19, where people are now saying, okay, well, hey, and I'm making as much money as I can, but I can throw out a line and catch 2 fish, whatever, to feed myself.
Yeah.
You're recognizing that the fishing industry itself, it feeds a nation. My right then needs to be to have the right to have an environment that's safe and healthy for me to do that. And I mean, that doesn't mean that I go in and I take a net and I just clean out the ocean floor, because that's also wrong, right? But it means that I must have the access to it, and I must have access to places that are within my community. So if I'm from Seaton's and Yida Zhang is going to be digging out and literally putting a trench through my entire community so that he can have a deep water harbor, so he can ship in and ship out his manufactured goods, and I, who am from Seaton's, can no longer access the fisheries there, you are infringing upon my environmental rights. That's where it goes. That's as far as it goes.
And so how are entities, and back to the question, how are entities held accountable? Like the justice thing, we have to codify that.
So I think we don't know yet. And that's why I think there's a lot that needs to go into it. Now, I am an NGO. So I don't work for government. I am very clear about that. That is not my role.
But your role is to advocate for it.
My role is to advocate for it. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to be figured out. But I know that for it to be figured out, I as an NGO who is an environmental defender, must be at the front lines of you figuring out how it's going to be.
So we have 2, we need a third one, and we have to figure it out.
We need to figure it out. And we need to make sure that Antiguans and Barbudans are the ones to tell you how to figure it out. Don't come make no decision about how me, Arica, going to access information and then say to me, this is how it's going to be. No. You need to ask me how I want to access the information. You need to figure out a way for everybody to make it easy.
Simple. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple and stupid. That's what it was.
It's keep it simple, stupid.
It was kiss.
It was kiss. But keep it. We still got the stupid. Just keep it simple.
Yes.
And so that anyone, regardless of educational level, income, they should be able to
access.
Whether it's state media, online, pamphlet, whatever.
Because Aziza, sometimes people say, oh, but it's accessible. It's in a gazette. Who has access to gazette? I'm sure it's available online. But who's going to look in a gazette?
Nobody. Understand to me.
That's your job. You understand? That's not saying that it exists is not enough.
That's a valid point, because it cannot exist. And how many people are going to go down, say, government printing, pay $10 to print out a document? That's the bias to access.
It's a bias to access.
And it's a barrier. It's a barrier to access.
Yes.
Because than the average person who live in the Seatons, who live in Grace Farm, who live in wherever in Antigua, who say that $10 can buy some food in these troubled times, to buy some noodles, to buy some corned beef, something. Am I going to use that $10 to print a document that I may not even understand?
When I read it, I'm going to be just like, what is this?
Why is this written like this?
Correct. Because sometimes, like I remember even when we were working towards how we were going to get Redonda to be designated as a protected area. Mm-hmm. And in the Environmental Protection and Management Act, there is a section on there about protected areas.
Yes.
Aziza, can I tell you that 3 or 4 of us sat down, and this is people who work in this field. So it's not that we are not all environmentally educated, right? Mm. Literally sitting down, reading this thing. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Everybody come up with their own interpretation. So 3 people, 3 different interpretations. And you know what? All of me wrong.
Everyone was wrong?
All of me wrong. We had to then call. We had to call the Department of Environment, and we're just like, okay, can you explain? And they were like, oh, this is what it means. And we're like, oh.
So Archie got it
wrong.
And that's a problem I have. This is a separate issue. I find academic language keeps out the people that it. Sometimes the way we write things keep out the people that's supposed to. Yeah. It's supposed to benefit and supposed to sometimes. And sometimes I see when we think we've reached some level of education, we talk a certain way, we write these papers, and I'm like, who reading this?
Yeah.
Who are you going to help?
Yep.
Are you all scratching? Is it sometimes it's ego. It's like for the other PhDs and the other doctors and other to read and say, oh, you did a good job.
Congratulations on that. So when you're finished, you need to
who is this going to be?
So I'm going to give you a prime example of how EAG deals with that. Mm-hmm. So earlier this year, there was a joint paper that was written on how to manage the marine spaces. I think it was in the NEMA, which is the Northeast Marine Management Area that I can't explain the boundaries now, but and national parks, and looking at them and how you're going to, and Redonda, I think. So the research was done by Rulio Camacho, Sophia Steele, Mark Archibald, and Shanna Challenger. So the 4 of them wrote this paper. Yeah. And when they were finished writing the paper, and they got it published, which is fantastic.
Yes, I love Rulio.
They then sent me an email and they were like, hey, this has been published. I then said, congratulations. I now look forward to you breaking it down piece by piece so we can then put it on Instagram and on Facebook. And they took like maybe a week and they went through their paper and they said, okay, what does a regular man need to understand? Yeah. Break it right down. Because nobody's going to read your paper.
Big them up, but
nobody's gonna. It will be used for academic purposes or for management. So, like, if we need to be looking at the management of those marine spaces, I will refer to that document. But the regular man is not going to read your paper. Break it down. Can you break it down into 10 to 15 points so it's like bite-sized? So a man just go read it and go, oh, okay, cool.
I'm gone.
He come again, he see something else. Me never know that. Move on. That is how information needs to be broken down.
I agree.
We have on Instagram and on Facebook, we have every Wednesday we do Wildlife Wednesdays. So if you check our stories, even if you go on our highlights now on Instagram at EAG Antigua, I'm always going to push it. You're going to see that we have a section called Wildlife Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, we post information about an interesting species in Antigua. Sometimes they're not that interesting. Like, if you look at them, you're just like, well, I could talk about that. But they're pretty cool. They're very interesting little things that you can find out about them, why they're called this, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, on Wednesday, we had I think it was a doctorfish as one of the species. And somebody on my team had written up the Wildlife Wednesday and mentioned that they feed on gorgonians. What is a gorgonian, Aziza?
I just literally thought of the Gorgons.
Okay.
I literally thought of the Gorgons.
And guess what?
Huh?
You'd be wrong.
I know, but I just thought of the Gorgons. I just be wrong. I just thought of the Gorgons in Greek and medieval and that kind of stuff.
And that to me would have made sense as well. So I said to them,
the Gorgons?
hey, you can't put Gorgonian. So they came back and they're like, I was like, what is a Gorgonian? They're like, oh, it's a sea fan. I said, so say sea fan. People know sea fan. It's literally
are they big? Because that's what I think of.
They're
Gorgons.
not. They can be big. They can be small, but they're shaped like a fan. Like you fan yourself.
Oh,
it's a fan in the sea. The end.
The end. Not a Gorgonian.
I mean that's their correct name. But when you're trying to make sure that if you want people to have access to information, if you want people to actually participate in decision making, you have to make the information easy enough for them to digest so that they can then speak knowledgeably and understand, okay, well, this is how it impacts me. And so what we're hoping for with the Escazú Agreement is that we will see that level of involvement from people, that people will feel that they have that power to access information, that they have the power to ask for the information to be broken down to them and not feel foolish to ask for it.
What does she mean?
It's okay to ask if you don't understand. Like, that's how we learn. That's how children learn. Why is it that when we get big, we feel that we need to stop learning? No. Tell them, I don't understand that. You need to explain.
Yeah. Just today, right, got to ask me if all parts of the body have bones. Explain to him how parts of the body have bones and how they work. And that's how we have to approach it. Yeah. What is this? How does it work? How does it benefit me?
Yeah. And especially when it comes to the environment, it's going to impact you.
It is.
It
is.
Aziza.
It is. It is going to impact us. And then, so the big question. So, our show is a youth show, and everybody can listen. But we focus on youth, and so for something like this, what does it mean for future generations? Why should young people care about it?
Youth, okay, I don't know if am I still?
Because
I've gotten over the age.
I would like to say youngish.
Offended.
Youngish.
Aziza, can I tell you? I'm sorry, this is like a side note, but so my district church, right, which is all the Wesleyan churches in Antigua, we're having a youth service.
Okay.
And they were like, yes, so if you're 35 and under, you are invited to be at the service. And I was just like, oh.
You're not invited to the service.
So what you trying to say?
You can't come church?
Meet up home. I stayed home. I watched it on Zoom. It was fantastic.
You're offended,
I was just
you're offended.
I didn't realize that
you're out of it.
I'm out of it. It's so weird because I don't feel it.
Youngish. Say you're youngish.
I'm in a youngish. Anyway, in a matter. My point is, people within our age group and younger you're thinking now, I mean, when I talk to some people, they're in their 20s, they're thinking about getting married, they're thinking about their children, they're thinking about, can I build a home? Does it make sense to build a home? Mm-hmm. Does it make sense to have children with climate change happening? They have a lot going on, and there's a lot that they're thinking about and trying to navigate within this new space. And I think sometimes we don't talk about that enough and the impact that must have on their mental health, because figuring out this future is hard.
Especially when we feel like everything is just going to...
It's going to pot.
Mm.
Yeah? But I think that young people are the ones who... And we talk a lot about how young people have power. But you're at the age where you have voting rights. Mm-hmm. That's one. And you're in a small enough country where you have close enough access to your politicians, and politicians along many lines, not just your ministers, but your senators. You have access to these people. Mm-hmm. Use the access that you have to say to people, hey,
this doesn't make sense.
This doesn't make sense. And I'm afraid for my future. When you sell off portions of land that should be protected, I am uncomfortable about my future. When you then say things sometimes in the public sphere about these environmental defenders and how they should then speak up against what they see, it makes me uncomfortable to say anything. I don't feel safe that I can say that. So I don't feel like you're protecting me because you've sold off what are my traditional rights. You've sold off what is supposed to be mine without that due care. And so it's not just that you've sold it. I think sometimes we kind of get too caught up in that part.
The selling.
The selling. You know, I don't really care that Yida is in the NEMA. I don't care that there's a developer in the NEMA, you know.
Interesting. So
No, it don't bother me.
That part, because we've had conversations, you know, that part doesn't bother you.
No.
Okay,
What bothers me is the kind of development that he's doing.
Okay, and then this is when we talk about
The sustainable development, right? So it's not an argument of saying, oh, let's not cut down any tree. No, it's, can you do this in the best possible way possible? Like, there is science enough to teach you what you should be doing. Let's use the science to make sure that you're not screwing me over in the future. That's all. Right?
That's an interesting point. Because we've had these conversations. So it's quite interesting you said that your problem is not that they're in NEMA, it's what they're doing.
It's what they're doing.
That's interesting.
Because, and I've said it, this is probably an odd picture to have up.
Yes, sorry. I'm just clicking through.
No, go back. None of those right now will make sense. But I think that they had the potential to show everybody how sustainable development could really happen. Think about just the other day, Antigua and Barbuda won this award from Lonely Planet.
Yes.
For, you know, really making strides towards sustainable tourism and ecotourism and so on, which is fantastic. And I will never downcry that award. That was fantastic, and I'm so proud of all of the people who are part of that. What I have a problem with is you have a whole sustainable tourism development office within people that you pay every single day. We're making a send them go work, help out Eden.
So this is for the general public. So I like to ask questions like I'm retarded.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So there's a sustainable development.
A sustainable tourism unit.
There's a sustainable tourism unit within
the Ministry of Tourism and Investment.
The Ministry of Tourism and Investment.
Yes.
So we have an aspect that deals with sustainable development.
Sustainable tourism only.
So it's sustainable tourism only.
Only.
That's all they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. And they've been doing it. Doing it to the point where internationally they've been recognized for the work that they're doing. They've been able to support communities to kind of figure out how you can have community tourism. You're figuring out how you can, literally sustain yourself through community tourism and that kind of thing. They've been able to help all of these people. They have a green corridor where all of these businesses along that line have agreed to certain sustainable targets. You have the skills. You have the skills and you have the people. Meaning, you don't have to bring in a consultant. You don't have to do that. The people that them right in your ministry sit down.
Right in Antigua and Barbuda.
And I'm not saying that they're right in your ministry sit down and I do nothing, because clearly they're doing plenty because they're able to get this award.
Yeah.
Why is it that
how are you utilizing them?
Utilize your people.
Send them where they're supposed to go. That's basically what it is.
Because
you're on your back foot.
It frustrates me because
you have them here. So we have a sustainable tourism unit. Right here.
You have the people and they're smart.
Then go get They go and get the education.
Then don't get them degree and them paper and them this and then that. Then come back and then prove to you that they can do it. Why is it that you have not utilized them on something that has been contentious from the beginning?
Excellent point.
You have a community development division who engages with the community on a regular basis. Why have you not tapped into them to make sure that there is proper engagement with the community and the developer? You have an embassy, a Chinese embassy that is there that can offer, if you need interpretation, whatever. I don't know what their job is, but tell them that that's what you need. And say to them, I need interpreters. Oh, you have people who came back from China who studied it.
Yeah.
Why are we not using the resources that we have? And then coming and then afterwards saying that environmental defenders are the ones who are wrong. We're not wrong. We're not wrong. We're just saying do it. You can do it. You can do the best. Do it. You have the people to do the best. Do it.
We have the people to do the best.
You have it. We have it already. And you don't have to spend the extra money.
And have us bringing our consultant.
No.
We love to bring in a
We
consultant.
love to bring in a consultant. Love to fly them in and have them at our kind of hotel and have
We
big...
love to bring in a consultant and Antigua. We have the people right here.
You need none of that.
We have them right here.
Mm-hmm.
We have to utilize. And that's an issue I have sometimes. The old tourism website, cough, cough. But when we pay people to do things that people right here can do.
Yeah.
As professional, as good. Yeah. They went away to study that.
Mm-hmm.
They have the experience and they can do it.
And this is again using even the same resources that you have. You have put so much into Antiguans and Barbudans. Yeah. The Board of Education scholarship.
Ooh.
There's so many people who've gotten it. I got it. Praise the Lord for that Board of Education scholarship. Praise the Lord. Okay? Because I don't know if I'd have gone out. I did not want to have to go and get a loan. And maybe I went to Jamaica and I did live skint, but I could have lived skint on what Board of Education gave me and come back and be fine. I have a whole degree. Thank you very much. When you're finished with that person, you've invested in that person, you've put in all of that money and effort. Why are you then going to go call a consultant to do something that they literally just came back from university to do?
Here's a hand and chin. So we have the thing, it's how we utilize it. And it's important for people, as you said, to know what their rights are.
Yeah.
To know that you can, as you said, call up environment and ask them, what is this? Why is it happening?
Yeah.
And explain. So as the example, we give somebody backfill in your area and cause flooding.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the right to say, why? Wamek?
And how are you going to fix it?
How are you going to fix it?
That's how you're going to fix it. Because after you say why, what's supposed to do with your answer? It needs to be fixed. Because I can't live in a space where my environment is not clean and healthy. But which is why we come back to the whole idea of your environmental rights being constitutional. Because it must be my fundamental right to be able to walk out into my yard and not stand up in swamp water.
And someone says, Mr. Jarvis, the question of sacrificing parts of the environment for the sake of development. And you made a point earlier that your problem isn't the development that's happening in the area.
No.
It's how it's being done. And when we talk about sustainable development, is that, yes, we need to have development, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And how do you strike that balance? How do you sustain it for future generations? Why young people need to care? Because you need to sustain it for. So everything can look fine and dandy right now. What happens 30, 40, 50 years down the line?
And sometimes and with the rate that we're seeing climate change impacts happening now, it's not even that far. It's not that far, Aziza. You think about the fact that this year we had so many storms, so many named storms, and I think that's the thing that you have to get at.
Did we start over the alphabet?
We started over.
We went into alpha and beta.
When you can get to a point where there have been 26 storms that have been named, so you have, I don't even know how many storms were unnamed, right? You realize that when you have unsustainable development, any of those 26 storms could have made landfall on Antigua and devastate a community that has no environmental protections. Because when you think about, I don't know, I think a lot of times when we talk about, like, people say, oh, let us remove the mangrove tree. We don't think about it as a big deal because you're just like, it's just a tree. No, it's an ecosystem. It has a full function, right? So you have four lines of trees, 4 types of trees that are actually within this system.
Yes.
That are breaking storms and all of that. Before you even pass them, you have seagrass beds who are doing their own work as well.
Yes.
Past them, you have coral reefs that are doing their own work. Them 3 together, then they do work that man cannot engineer. We have not figured out how to engineer it as perfectly and as, I will actually say, cheaply as our natural environment.
Because the reefs break the water.
Yes. And the seagrass beds slow storm surge. They actually, I don't even know how they do it, Aziza, but they're just so perfect that they literally, if you look on an area where there's a mangrove and then seagrass beds, you can actually see where the seagrass beds start and stop because of how calm that area is, because they literally slow down that energy. So the coral reefs way out kind of say, okay, yeah, hold on little. Then the seagrass beds say, okay, just hold it some more. Then the mangroves right in front of that take the rest of it and say, no, y'all now pass.
Literally.
Literally.
3 of them have this.
3 of them working together, and then you decide to take out. If you take out one of them, the fact is that because they work together, if you remove one, you kill off the other. We kill off that one. So if you remove mangroves, it's going to be too much sediment that's coming from land.
Because the coral reef.
It's going to go right over the seagrass beds and they're going to die. Once the seagrass beds die, there's nothing keep as a barrier and a protection for the coral reef. Coral reef can't survive without sunlight. So if no sunlight is going on top of them and they're covered by sediment, they will also die. So you've literally wiped out 3 lines of protection. You have nothing.
Just by
removing the mangrove ecosystem. So the same mangrove plant that is so not important, remove that.
And also I think when it comes to flooding as well, the mangroves serve a purpose.
Everything serves a purpose.
Everything. I like that. Everything serves a purpose.
The
good in everything.
There's good in everything. And so what you need to do is be able to figure out, how do I live in harmony with this? How do I live in such a way that I don't kill myself? And this is why every time people see pictures of the development that's happening, they always say, boy, just wait till one storm come.
Because interestingly, I can't remember his name, and we went out. Is Laviscount Island? I think it's Laviscount Island, which is, I think it's privately owned. And he has turtles.
Yes.
And he has constructed his dock in such a way that he doesn't kill any mangroves.
Yeah, because he knows.
He literally, and it was so interesting when we walked through it and we went to the island, and he wants to construct different things. He believes in sustainable development and thing, and he's like, I'm not going to cut down a mangrove when I'm building what I build. And I found that so fascinating.
Yep.
What he's building on the shore. He's like, I'm not going to cut down a mangrove. The mangroves serve a purpose. And we went on the boat, we docked, and the mangroves were there.
They're there.
He didn't cut any down to build his dock.
And what will happen is he will be able to maintain his business. He'll be able to ensure that fisher folk who would normally fish in the area can maintain their business. He will ensure that other tour operators who want to drive through that area and take their tourists there will be able to maintain their business. So he's not just doing it for himself. All of these different people are going to be able.
And he's going to build his different. So
and he will thrive.
So
and then after that, somebody can then go from where he is, go up into the community and fry fish from the. And I actually know the lady. Her name is Ruth. Her food is fantastic. Go and check her out. But you by thinking sustainably and by building sustainably, you not only ensure that your business is secure, but you literally help others.
It's like the wearing a mask. We're not
Correct.
just helping ourselves.
Yes, you're doing it for everybody else.
And that's what we have to think when it comes to sustainable development. How we approach things is that he's building something, and his name escapes me right now. And
it's Stuart.
He has built something whereby he says he's not going to cut down a mangrove, and he made it possible.
Yeah.
He built, and I found it fascinating. Like, he built his wharf thing for his boat to dock, and we walked right through the mangrove.
And it's not him alone. Let's think about South Coast Horizon. Mm-hmm. You have the same kind of setup where you're able to walk across a boardwalk.
Yeah.
Through a mangrove, and there's some people who would never have gotten the experience to see mangroves.
How do they even do? Like, sorry,
how do you do it?
Like, it's fascinating because I went on a hike. We walked through there. We walked on a boardwalk, and then they have boats and they have all these other things, and you just walk through it. Mm-hmm. Simple, and it's and they just maneuvered it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
It is.
And when I've passed in front of, and I'm okay with saying it, passing in front of the Yuda development on a boat, especially in the past few weeks when we've been going out to Great Bird Island, and their shoreline is being held up by tires. What is the point?
When you had mangroves.
You had mangroves, and you're planting frangipani. What is the point? So it's pretty. Trees are not just about prettiness, you know.
They serve a purpose.
They serve a purpose. And you can't go and just say, I'm going to replant the mangroves there, because you've destroyed the whole flow of the ecosystem.
And they take, and how long does a mangrove take to...
It depends, because they're finicky.
They're wild.
They're finicky. They
And some of them don't... Which one is the walking one?
So that's the red mangrove, the ones that look like fingers. I'm trying to, like, where's my hand? So they look like fingers in the water, right? Yes. So they literally come down like that. And what happens is, like, so the fingers are the roots, and at the top here as the trees, you'll find that one pod will drop, right? And that pod can become a root right there, or it will float until it finds a space that it feels, I don't even know how it decides.
It decides.
It decides, yes, this is the perfect spot, and it will take root there.
Literally. It moves.
It does its own thing, and
so I said, I don't want to be home. I want to go somewhere else.
I want to see the world, mother. And it goes off to see the world, and it creates its own new
ecosystem,
mangrove ecosystem. And when you go to the roots of those, you're gonna find oysters. You're finding mollusks. You're finding baby fish. You're finding crabs, lobsters, shrimps.
Because what I understand is, and I think from my trip as well, that some animals go there to
have babies.
So they come out of the sea from dangerous animals, big animals that may eat their babies, and they go within the roots and have their babies, and then they
deuces them out. And so their babies can actually, why it's important for them is that because of those same roots, the roots are so close together that only small fish are rather relatively small fish, because it kind of depends on what you consider to be small. But the small fish can fit between those little areas, and they can hide from the larger fish. Larger fish can't get in. And the water is also, in some cases, very shallow.
Yeah.
So, if you're a big fish, you'll struggle. You can't manage, So
it's a way for those other fish to repopulate.
Yes, it's definitely a way to repopulate. So once your mangrove ecosystems are healthy, your seagrass ecosystems are healthy, your coral reef ecosystems are healthy, you are having fisheries for entire communities. And let me tell you something about even that fisheries in the NEMA, right? It doesn't just supply us, Those fish go along the Eastern Caribbean. It has been noted that that area there is an important spawning spot, or rather, not as a spawning, but it's an important area for the birth, so that they can go along the Eastern Caribbean line. Okay. So we're not just dealing with our local fishers. We're dealing with
St. Kitts
and Anguilla and on and on and on.
And that's interesting. I didn't know that. So how do you say it's important for young people to know about this agreement?
Yes.
So going forward, what can we do? What can those listening do? What is the next step for the EAG and this agreement?
For us, we are still at the figuring things out stage, because we presently do not have the environmental rights. So our focus now, we've had a panel discussion I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. It's still available on our Facebook page, which is at EAG Antigua. So you can check us out there, have a look. But our next step is to actually have a conversation with lawyers and say, okay, so do we need to have constitutional reform? What does that look like? How long will it take? What is the process? Because when I spoke with the lawyer who was on our panel discussion, his name is Rashane Cunningham.
Yes.
He was just like, Arica, I don't know if you're going to be happy about what I'm going to tell you, but you need constitutional reform. And I said, okay. He's like, you know that this is not easy. I said, I didn't ask if it was easy. What I need to know is what I need to do. If you don't know what you need to do, you can't do nothing, you know.
Great point.
Great point. So, now that I know, okay, is EAG pushing for constitutional reform? Maybe that's our next step.
Make environmental rights a part of the Constitution.
Make it a fundamental human right. It's already a fundamental human right for Jamaicans and for Guyanese. It's in their Constitution.
Fascinating.
Yes.
I learned something new today. We'd have to Google that.
Yeah, I can tell it to you. But I mean, if my thing is, if
it can be done.
It can be done. And literally, Aziza, it's a sentence. It's a short, sweet little sentence. Just that, you know, people have a right to clean and healthy environments. So what I would say is follow us along on the journey. We literally don't know where this is going to go. We don't know how it's going to happen. But we know that because we believe that we must be a part of decision making, not just because we are EAG, but because we are citizens of this country, because it's going to impact upon our lives and the lives of our families and our friends, our godchildren, our children if we have them. We know it's going to have an impact. So we're going to be a part of the process. Be a part of the process with us.
And the other two pillars, you say, two pillars are already codified in law.
Mm-hmm.
And so people can contact the EAG because...
Not EAG.
Contact the environment.
Department of Environment. Let's make that very clear.
That was
a slip of the tongue.
A slip of the tongue.
But let me tell you, it happens.
It happens.
It happens. And I mean, I love that people call us for everything, but plenty of time we're not
the body.
We're not the ones to manage it. And like,
so you have two pillars that already exist, and we have the Environment Protection Act, which is already codified into law.
Mm-hmm.
It's been gazetted. It's really long and really big. So called the environment. So those remind people of those other two pillars.
So the three pillars are: one, access to information,
which is already law. Right.
The second one is access to participation in environmental matters. So your inclusion in decision making, which is already in the Environmental Protection and Management Act. It's also in the Physical Planning Act. So when you think about environmental impact assessments, so just like just the other day you would have seen that the Department of Environment would have posted that you can make comments on the environmental impact assessment for the Peace, Love and Happiness. I think it is development. I think it's them. That's happening in Barbuda. You have a right to comment on it. You have a right. And I actually was really very proud of this when I heard it. I heard Diane Blacklane, who is the Chief Environment Officer. She was speaking on the radio and she said, look, if you access the environmental impact assessment and when you're reading it, you're just like, I don't know what this is saying, you can call the Department of Environment and they can explain. She literally said that. And I was just like, yes! This is precisely what people need. You reading that, you don't understand, call them, tell them, look, me not understand this, yeah. Break it down. Somebody has to break it down for you.
Keep it simple for people.
And they can keep it simple. And the final one is the access to environmental justice.
Which is the one that we need to work on.
Yeah, and it's going to be a big one because lawyers in Antigua have not been trained in environmental law.
Yeah, because there are people who actually do that.
Yeah, as a full-time job. Yeah. So if you are accustomed to just dealing with, and I don't even say want to just dealing with, but if you're accustomed to dealing with criminal matters, and then somebody's going to come to you about an environmental matter, that's going to push you completely left field. Like, you're not going to know what you're looking at, and the amount of time that you're going to take, and this is what it is, the amount of time that you're going to take trying to figure it out is also going to be an added cost onto that person who is bringing the case to you.
Yeah.
So the whole legal system is going to be very expensive for environmental defenders. So what that section of the Escazú Agreement is actually trying to deal with is to remove some of that burden and that barrier to seeking redress on environmental matters, because you realize it's just too costly. EAG cannot go up against
anyone.
We can't afford that.
So they have to remove that barrier, that cost.
That barrier must be removed.
And so for the...
I'm sorry, I will even say that even if you notice that the people in Barbuda presently are like, because the development is happening in a Ramsar site, which is an internationally recognized area for the frigate bird colony, they realize, look, we cannot afford to go to take the government to court. We can't afford to take a developer to court. So they found somebody who was doing it pro bono, right? Mm-hmm. But they shouldn't have to do that. They should, as a part of the Escazú Agreement, should have access to those to lawyers and to the judicial process without having to feel the burden of the cost to do that.
And so for persons who want to learn more of the Escazú Agreement, where should they go?
Well, we presently have some information on our Instagram and Facebook pages, which is at EAG Antigua. We are also going to be continuing the conversation in the next few months, again, probably on like a Facebook Live kind of panel discussion. There are websites, but they're not, interestingly, they're not very easy to understand.
As we talk about that academic barrier.
So poor.
That academic barrier that rubs me the wrong way sometimes.
I know, like their pages aren't necessarily the easiest to access. And so what I will try to do in the coming week is probably put up links to things that I found were relatively easy to read. But what we did with our page was that we just put main points. Mm-hmm. So at least you can get a frame for what it is. And then definitely follow us. Make sure that you are tuned into what we're doing, because we will definitely be sharing more information as time comes along.
Okay. And in regards to, so the Escazú Agreement, we've ratified it in March. We have 2 pillars that are already law. The 3rd pillar, as an access to justice, is something that we all have to work on. Mm-hmm. And I seem like we have a phone call.
Ooh.
Let me... Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You put this in the schools, sir?
I have not done that in the schools yet.
You put it in the schools,
really are doing this just because we believe that it's important. I know that one of the Escazú champions in Antigua is Miss Ruth Spencer. And I'm hoping that is going to be part of the work she's going to be doing. We've also kind of met with community groups, but I think it's more like, if you are a part of a school and you're just like, hey, I want y'all to come in and talk about it, give us a call. Our number's up on the screen. It's 462-6236.
No, I don't be no problem with school. I'm interested in that. A part and the papa will be part and deal. And anything carrying them down there. I think the school people to know. And different people to know. People do that today, person say, your baby. I think it's a good thing you're doing. Some of those things I know. You people and hire teachers that don't get together. I know do everything with to get in school. that people
I
can
agree. This is
understand.
something that needs to be in school so that young people, because as I say, it affects young people knowing these agreements, and these are things you don't really teach, like agreements and treaties and things like that, and it affects us all. So I definitely think that's something that we should
Okay.
learn.
But me take my time to go to school. Me think I don't do enough work. But in the time for us start. We part the school don't do. We know early or late or whatever. But me think we start going to school by next year. You know what I mean?
I do take that suggestion.
Me
We'll
listen
figure it
on the
out.
radio.
And I definitely believe that. I do agree with you that we definitely need to go to schools. We have not been visiting schools
Because of COVID.
That has actually put quite a bit of a change for us. Like, we've had to figure out new ways to engage with students. So we'll figure it out, man. Don't worry about that.
Thank you, caller, and thank you for calling. I know you call in regularly, and thanks for listening to the show. See, I'm always messing it up.
Watching you trying to figure that out is
I'm
hilarious.
always messing it up because I don't have any headphones. You have to switch back and forth.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it's something that I think I lost my train of thought there from when he called it, but it's something that is important for us to know about, us to learn about. You know, you have it on all your different platforms, Instagram, your Facebook.
And Twitter as well.
And Twitter as well. I think there's the panel discussion that's about an hour long on your Facebook.
Yes.
That people can learn more about the agreement.
It's long, but it's interesting.
It's long, but it's interesting. You can learn about how we need to learn more about this agreement.
Yeah.
We have to fight, so we have to learn about it.
And you see, the thing about it, right, Aziza, I find, for me, like I was talking to a colleague of mine, and one of the things that we said was a gap in our knowledge, having worked in the environmental field for so many years. We didn't know that once it's signed and ratified, that it wasn't immediately in law. We just assumed, like, Paris Agreement signed, yes, man, no one can cost them when it, no. And it's like, it's not true. It takes time for that to be
A law,
and it kind of depends on,
the government at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, people leaving the Paris Agreement.
Exactly. And I want to emphasize, I know that a lot of the kind of conversation that we've had for the past 2 hours has been really more about like that level of advocacy where it feels like you're fighting against somebody. But I want to re-emphasize what I said at the beginning, which is when decisions are people-centered, when their decisions are very much focused on you who's being affected, it removes conflict. And where I want to get as an Antiguan, as a part of the environmental awareness group as well, is where there is no need for that conflict, because the decisions that are being made, I see. I can look at it and see where I made a change here and it was listened to and it wasn't just kind of tossed under the table because, oh, well, what she know about that? It's treated with respect. So once people are at the center,
Possibilities.
all things good, everything crisp. Do people still say that?
So we have another caller. Let me switch properly. Hello, good day, caller.
Hello, good evening.
Afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly?
Hi. Good evening. Is Senator Aziz?
Yes, this is Senator Lake. How are you doing today?
Okay, and the other. Yes, I'm hearing you. And the other.
Miss Hill
Caller?
of the EAG, Miss Arica Hill.
Yes. What I'm saying is that today is my Sabbath, but it happens that I turn on this station and there are lots of information, and I trust that lots of persons listening so that the information that we were getting, it would help us to have a better environment. Okay? And I want to congratulate you. As the previous caller said, it's good to have the information in the school. Also, you can have those informations like at bookstores, if you can get something written up and persons could find themselves there and read up. Congratulations for all those information, okay? Bye.
Thank you, caller. We truly appreciate
Thank
it.
you. And you see, I love that. What I love is that here is where somebody is saying, I want access to information, and this is where I want the information. You see how it all ties back together?
Okay, so since we have another caller.
Oh, fantastic.
Hello, good day, caller.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm great. I was listening to the program from the start when you always mentioning about the mangoes and the rats and the snake. Actually, the British brought the mangoes here to kill the rats, not the snakes, because the rats used to destroy the sugar cane, so that's why they brought them here. But what the British didn't know, the rats and the mangoes never cross paths because the mangoes go to sleep at night, and the rats they come out at night. Because the rats, as I mentioned, used to destroy the sugar cane. That's what small used to call field mice and so forth. Yeah, so that's what happened. So we must get it right. It's not that they brought me to kill any snake. They brought me to kill the rats. But they kill the snake instead because they don't cross paths.
So they bought them for the rats.
Yes.
And they killed the snakes.
They kill the snake because the rats and the mangoes never cross
So
paths.
that's why the racist snake disappeared on Antigua and was over.
They were only 50 on.
Right.
And
So I just wanted to get that part clear.
So
Excuse me?
I was saying they didn't plan it properly.
No, the British have that one wrong. They didn't plan it properly at all. But it's not about, they didn't brought you to kill no snakes. No, not at all. So you guys have a good day.
Thank you, caller. We said the British got. I was about to say, well, I got many things wrong.
Hey, I was laughing about it because I saw that Twitter thread about what was happening in St. Kitts with their monkeys, and the man was just saying, like, boy, every time these colonizers.
Every time. Oh, the monkey thread.
Situation, it's hilarious.
It is the funniest thing I've read in a long time. So, apparently the British bought the monkey. It's a Twitter thread. It's a petition. No, it's a Jamaican tweeting
It's
about
a Jamaican, yeah.
Tweeting about St. Kitts. So this is a fun fact. So everybody know monkeys in St. Kitts. If you've been to St. Kitts, you know about the monkeys. But apparently the monkeys have gotten out of control. So they formed a monkey task force
To deal with all the monkeys.
to deal with the monkeys. And what the monkey task force has done, you can shoot the monkeys.
Yes.
Literally, the monkeys are pests, and they've become pests to like the farmers and things like that.
They're just disgusting.
They're monkeys, and I was watching one of them said that this farmer said that he's a chicken farmer, livestock, and the monkey let go all his chicken.
What?
Literally, he has 2 chicken. He's like over 100 chicken. The monkeys, they're just disgusting. They're monkeys, and so they have the task force. They're mischievous, and literally they've been shooting monkeys the last weekend, and they only shot 56 monkeys.
And they have more monkeys than they have people over in St. Kitts.
It says over 50,000 monkeys.
That's
50,000
so bad.
It's bad. That's a lot of
so
monkeys.
bad.
There are more monkeys than people in St. Kitts.
That's kind of like how they were like 6,000 rats, on Redondo.
So it's like, and
It's just overrun.
and then-
overrun.
And
What you
in
can
the
do?
thread, he said, colonialism, blame the British.
Blame them.
Blame them. So what are before we wrap up, so we spoke a lot about the Escazú Agreement and how they can contact the EAG. You said the number 462-6236.
Yes.
What's another way that you can be contacted?
We do encourage you can message us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook at EAG Antigua. Or if you're not necessarily old school, relatively old school, and you want to send us an email, that's okay too. You can email us at eagantigua@gmail.com. Call us, message us, everything. We're easy to access. And if you feel the need to see us in person, once you mask up and sanitize, you can come right upstairs the museum where we are located, and we're open from 9 till 4 every day.
And
Monday to Friday. Do not come on Saturdays. I've had people call in on Saturday and you're like, what are you doing?
and what are any short-term plans that y'all the AG is planning to do?
Short-term plans, oh my God. We have quite a bit going on actually. So next year we're very excited to partner with the Small Grants Program and with the British High Commission. We are going to have an environmental conference in September. It's the first one it's our inaugural one, and it really is trying to amplify the voices of civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, other NGOs who are all working on environmental matters. And you kind of feel like everybody's working in different areas, but we haven't come together to work together and figure out how we can pool our resources. But we also want to not just be able to say, okay, where do our synergies exist? But we also want to get to the point where we can say to government, these are the things that we need. This is the support that we need, not just from our national community, but from the international community. What we need as organizations who are at the front lines of environmental change. And so we are actually going to be, as a part of that conference, putting together a position paper that is going to go to the Conference of the Parties 26, which is happening in Glasgow. And we're hoping that that will help to kind of boost the need to see, like, our kind of organizations, non-governmental organizations, being more supported by the international community, not just in terms of funding for activities, but funding for people to actually do the work, and funding that is not so short term that by the time we squint,
blink,
the time up and man scrambling, we're able to actually kind of go in and do the work and do it really, really well. So that's going to start. We have a capacity building workshop happening in January, and then we're having the big conference in September. We're kind of excited about it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the work that the EAG does. I'm always supporting of the work that you all do.
And so because of that, I will also invite people to join the EAG. Let me tell you something, right? If we don't have people, I don't want to say if we don't have people, but when people join us, it strengthens our voice. When we go to government, when we go to policymakers, decision makers, developers, and we say, look, this is the EAG and we're asking for this change, it helps when we have lots of voices behind us. It might be, they may see a single face, but it's thousands that are supporting. We need you to join the EAG. It is a simple process. Definitely just go again on Facebook. That's probably the easiest point. Join. See the links there, join us, and it's only $65 a year. Easy.
$65 each year to join the agent and be part of their projects. And end up on places like, And
as a member, there are perks to being a member. Like even this afternoon, I think in another hour, we have a bird club who's going to be going out to, I don't remember where they're going today. But they're going on a birding adventure this afternoon.
Birding in Antigua?
Yeah.
Hush wanted to do that.
We literally do it like, I think once or twice every month. They just go out and they go birding. And it's like an hour or two of fun, and it's great.
It's fascinating. That's cool. So yeah, I always support the work that you all do, the AAG does. It's always a pleasure to have you here. I think if I check the records, you have been on our show the most.
Really?
This is your third time. Outside of our host, I think you might have the record of being on the show the most time. I'm going to check it out. You deserve a prize.
Yes!
You deserve a prize to be on the show. I have because I went to Uganda, based on the first trip, I went to Uganda, and so I have a picture of a master booby. Because you said if I came and if I touched a snake, it would happen.
On Great Bread Island, and you did. I still have that picture. I sent it to Ibis the other day because I was like, hey, look what came up in my memories. And he was like, ah!
Ibis is afraid of snakes. And we were measuring, if my memory serves me right, we were measuring the
You were helping with the census, yes.
So we were measuring the circles on it.
So what you were measuring was the length of the snake. So you actually had to use a string, which is what we use to tell us, like, okay, how long is the snake? So you actually go along the curve of the spine of the snake, and you get the full length on the string, and then you use that on a ruler and say, okay, how long is the snake? Has it grown since last we saw it? And you take down all of that data.
Okay, so it's collecting data and touching snakes. So that was a pleasure. So as I said, I look forward to the work that you do. So happy you came here to teach us, educate us about the Escazú Agreement. Looking forward to, the outreach, schools, whatever you have, whatever you do, so they educate Antigua and Barbadians to know that we are part of this agreement. This is what we have to do. These are the pillars, and if the legislative changes, what have you, looking forward to it. And it's always a pleasure to have you here, and it's always a pleasure, for everyone listening. Thank you to our callers. Thanks to everyone listening online and on the radio, on the app, on the website. Everyone have a safe weekend. Remember to mask up, hand sanitize, keep it hygienic. We want to protect all Antiguans and Barbudans and residents from, the COVID. So have a blessed weekend, everyone. Stay safe. It's been a pleasure. And, do good. Can you break me out of my bubble, bubble, bubble? I see